Welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin, and today's topic is freedom in limitation. And I think it's such an interesting paradox that when we have unbounded options, we often feel immobilized. There's too many choices. But when we create some constraints, when we define some limits, we have the opportunity for unbounded creative expression within those boundaries. So we get to talk about that a bit more. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any negativity, stress, tension, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, energizing your cells, your molecules, your electrons, and creating a brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together. And very softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of it. Really connect to that sensation and allow yourselves to be present to the miracle of these physical forms that enable us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Jenny. Good morning to everyone who's joining us. It's great to have you here with us this morning and every morning that you come. I think that this is a fun topic because it's talking about the freedom in limitation. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but when you have an opportunity to do anything, it's really hard it can be really hard to figure out what you want to do. Because there's a universe of possibilities available to you. And then if you narrow it down to this or that, then it's a whole lot easier to choose, right? It's even easier to say, I don't want this or that, but I do want this, because there's been a constraint. When I became really aware of this interesting sort of paradoxical situation was years ago. I was experimenting with different ways of eating for health, particularly. And at one time, and this is actually through my life, I can see this dynamic happening over and over. Within different disciplines of eating. So I was experimenting and learning and trying macrobiotics. And it was a very defined protocol, essentially, for what you could eat and what you couldn't eat and how to prepare it. And there were all kinds of rules to it. And it wasn't a diet, it was a lifestyle kind of thing. And within those constraints, it was, first of all, I loved it because, and I love my experiments with food over the years and different dietary disciplines, I'll say, because they have given me an opportunity to learn about new foods that I didn't know about, to develop new skills, to expand my knowledge, and to give me a new canvas for creative expression. So with all these different ingredients and the certain set of rules, then I could explore and make different combinations out of these things and just create. It was really, really cool. Same thing with raw food, same things with juicing, same thing with vegetarianism and veganism, and like all these different disciplines that enabled me to expand my knowledge base, which was really cool, to expand my experience with different tastes and textures, and it also within the boundaries of a certain rule set, I was able to really expand and create. And I think that this is an interesting thing for us to be looking at when we look at what we want to do with our lives. I was thinking, if you have anything available to you. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you joining us. It's great to have you here. We're talking about the freedom in limitation. So sometimes having too many choices can be paralyzing. I mean, even in the grocery store, Jenny says, I'm going to create a dream board for the new year. Awesome. So actually, one of the reasons that I'm talking about this is because I also want to be talking about this week about how we close out this year and create an opening for next year, and what a wonderful ritual that can be. So it's awesome that you're creating a dream board, and that's kind of looking at, well, what are all the possibilities? What do I want to create out of nothing? Like, if I could create anything I wanted, oftentimes that's paralyzing. So what I was saying is, even in the grocery store, you go in and there are 65 different kinds of beans. Let's say you wanted to get well, my mom wanted stewed tomatoes. So I went to the grocery store and there was a huge selection of stewed tomatoes. And it's like, I don't know which stewed tomatoes she wants, like all these choices. And so, you can end up spending a tremendous amount of time, on things that are not all that important, right? Because there are so many choices available, and we live in a time where we do have so many choices available to us that it can often be really daunting. Anyway, so in context of the choices for our lives, like creating a dream board, a lot of us end up feeling intimidated and paralyzed by the daunting prospect of whatever we really would dream of doing or being or having or experiencing. And I'm thinking that a lot of the rules that we make, a lot of the constraints that we make for ourselves, a lot of them are unconscious, and a lot of them also just sort of keep us, we were talking about masks yesterday, but sort of keep us in our lane. Because we have certain constraints about who we believe ourselves to be. So Rosalind says, expression of self, but with limits, ? Yes. So that's what we're talking about, is that typically we do limit our expression of self. As expansive as we may be, we have these constraints that we adhere to, like it might be something like being a good person. I'm a good person, and therefore this is how I act about this, that, and the other thing. And or I was watching a trailer for a movie of this guy that was free climbing up a sheer a sheer granite cliff that had very little to do with handholds. I mean, like fractions of an inch. And he was climbing this thing with no rope. Apparently, all the people that I don't know about this guy if he survived it or not, but all the top people outside of him were dead because you lose this tiny little grip and boom, you're done. There's no rope, no nothing. And I was thinking, I have no desire at all to do that. I have no interest whatsoever in doing something like that. Like that is not in my wheelhouse at all. Like and it made me look at um what my ideas are of who I am, So Rosalind asked if I ever found my other hat. I haven't found it yet. I was trading off between the two, but I haven't found it yet. It's just so bizarre, nor have I found the scarf that went missing. So thank you for asking, Rosalind. Maybe, and I've been talking to the fairies and talking to Maggie. Nobody's showing up with the hat yet. So it may be in my car. I haven't gone and checked that yet. So, but it's definitely not in my apartment. At least if it is, it's hiding really well. Anyway, so when we think about doing anything, like there are certain things that I've done that are adventurous and that I would have interest in doing that are adventurous, but that climbing with no rope, not for me. Yes, Jenny says the birdie took it. I think she could have, for sure. For sure. So I think that we get to look at this thing from two sides, at least. One side is what kind of limitations do we impose upon ourselves to navigate life, to make things sort of, to give us an experience of expansiveness, how do we use limitations to enable us to function and accomplish things. So for instance, we can take on a project, like sometimes when we don't have a constrained schedule, sometimes it's hard to know what to do with our time, like where to put our focus. And that's why, having projects can kind of keep us motivated, right? And it also can keep us distracted. So it's a double-edged sword. Jenny says, lack of beliefs in self. I'm not sure how that connects exactly with what I'm trying to say here. So I'll keep it in mind and see if it resonates to be able to fill in. Maybe lack of belief in self by keeping ourselves in our own limits, like by saying, oh, I could never do that kind of thing. Maybe that's what you're talking about. It's not that I could never do that. I probably couldn't. But I have no desire. I have no interest in doing that. There are certain things that I just have no interest in doing. And I did jump out of a plane, so I did go skydiving, and it was very, very amazing and cool. And I've walked on fire and done some other crazy things, but free climbing, not interested. Even if I had the body strength to do that, it just is not of interest to me. That's like beyond the risk tolerance that I have, for sure. But I also have no interest really climbing to the top of Everest, for example, or, summiting any of these big mountains. Maybe you do, but there are things that, like, if we look at what would you want to do if you could do anything? I have had people just be paralyzed by, well, I want to do this, I don't know where to do it. And that's where the whole dream stops, because there's so many options. And sometimes I think that there may be value to us if we can impose an arbitrary limitation to something. And it's never going to be completely arbitrary because it's generated from us. So that's not arbitrary. Or, like I know people who will just like close their eyes and pick a place on a map, and that's where they'll go next. Or they'll close their eyes, pick a place on the map and say, oh, I don't want to go there. So it helps them refine what they do want. Sometimes we know what we do want by knowing what we don't want. So Jenny says, is that what you would put on a dream board? One of the things I would put on the dream board is Northern Lights. I really want to see the Northern Lights. And I would love to go to the pyramids. I don't know that I would want to do all the, like, I wanted to go to India, but one of the things that made me not want to go to India is that I don't want to get all the shots for it, because I'm already immune compromised, so I don't want to really, I didn't want to do that, but I'd love to go to India. And there are many places I would love to travel to. Who knows what's going to happen with our COVID world as far as traveling, but yeah, I mean, what kinds of things would you put on a dream board that maybe are outside your current constraints? If you could really, there's something that I saw that was so cool that I'm really interested in doing. Jenny says Colorado's beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I've seen that I thought would be really fun to do is this, it's like a jetpack, but on the water. So you have this jetpack on, and it uses a water stream, and you can fly around in the air with this thing. That looks amazing. I would love to do that. But I wonder what kinds of things you put dream board. I mean, if you can step outside the, another thing on my dream board is to have an RV and to be living RV life for a while. So I'm actually preparing for that, which is one of the reasons that I came up with this idea today. I have a friend who is a professional organizer, like a home organizer and declutterer, and like helping to organize space. And I have this wonderful apartment that I've lived in for almost, well, I guess it's 20 years this year, believe it or not, which is mind-blowing to me, frankly. But anyway, I've collected a lot of stuff over 20 years, and I have a lot of really beautiful, wonderful stuff that I love. And I have a lot of other stuff that I've just collected that I could be releasing. And one of my biggest impediments in the whole thing is that I haven't really known how to get rid of the stuff. So Jenny says, I need a friend like that. Yeah. So I just decided, this is freedom in limitation, right? So by divesting myself of lots of my stuff, I expect that I will feel a much greater lightness and a greater sense of expansion. So by limiting the things that I have, I'm expecting to experience a much greater freedom. And so that's what brought up this topic, because I think we can see that in so many ways that when people can be feeling paralyzed in business because they don't know what to do to get, like they don't have a strategy to get from here to there. They don't have a path to follow. So they end up being kind of aimless, right? And confused about, well, now what? And when there's a clear path to, oh, okay, this is what I get to do, not, and we all have different tolerances for how constrained that path should be, right? Because if I'm, here's what to do this hour and that hour and the other hour, there's no way I'm doing it. But if I have a loose idea of, okay, these are the things I get to do, and I can then create allocation blocks for those that work for me, or it helps me to know what to do next. Is I'm gonna spend some time doing this, spend some time doing that, and make progress on these different projects, right? So I think it's a really fascinating thing how less is more sometimes, right? In fact, less is more a lot of times. And let's see, Jenny says, if it doesn't bring you joy, let it go. I'm bored a lot and don't know what to do. So if you're bored, maybe the thing to do is to say, what, you said, if it brings me joy, I get to keep it. It was interesting. I said this to my my organizer friend, and she said, well, she works with a lot of people who have issues with hoarding, and their response to that is, of course, all of it brings me joy, and that's part of the issue. So that's not necessarily the best criteria. I think for me, it's probably a really good criteria, but I don't know, like there are so many things that I have that are utilitarian, that don't necessarily bring me joy, but they're useful, so I haven't a challenge with that whole thing too. Rosalind says, if I'm making steps toward, or I'm already that, then what would I be doing, saying, what would I be feeling? Sit in that space, and then from nothing will come your next step. So you preempted me there, Rosalind, because where I was going with this is, when we have an unbounded world of opportunities, when we get to be present in ourselves, we can attune ourselves to that inner wisdom, which is what you're addressing, Rosalind, so well. Thank you for looking at what is my soul calling for, and then to see myself in that situation as I recognize my desire. Then we can try it on to say, who would I be being? How would I be standing? What would I be saying? What would I be hearing? What would I be feeling? And good morning, Bernadette. So good to have you here with us. So this is a way to be able to step into our vision. Let's say, so this is how I really stepped into the vision of the eco park. Like I had this vision, and the thought of really truly taking it on was terrifying. I mean, terrifying. And I was in this coaching training, and we did this exercise where we had the opportunity to step into that new self. And honestly, it was really scary. And like I said, I've done some crazy things like jumping out of a plane and stuff, Well, this was stepping over an imaginary line into this new place of being that was really unknown. I had no idea how to make it happen. I had all kinds of ideas about how could I possibly do such a thing. And stepping over that line into being that person, taking on that challenge, was very exhilarating. I can tell you, it was a life-altering moment that I literally deliberately chose, and out of nothing, really creating it out of nothing. Although my soul for years in my life had been saying, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. And I would say, oh yeah, that's very nice. Like that's going to happen. And it was a beautiful dream. And so that moment was stepping from dream into commitment, from dream into declaration. And that's something that's available to us when we are defying the limits and connecting to that inner voice that does know what it wants and does know what's important. And if we choose to listen, we can say, well, I've always dreamt of this, that, or the other thing. And we get to step from dream into destiny, that we get to make our own destiny if we choose. And Jenny says, for me, a cluttered home is a cluttered mind. Well, okay, so I'm going to challenge that. So I'm going to challenge that a little, and I get that. And maybe I just want to challenge the perspective on that. Okay. So I have a lot of interests. And I have, it's full, like it's full. So sometimes it feels like there's too much going on, too much that I'm doing, or too many interests. But I don't know that I'd call that cluttered. Maybe it might be cluttered, or just a lot, like there's a lot of richness. And there are definitely things in my space that I can clear out that feel like, it feels a little cluttered. And there's also incredible richness in my space. So it's a matter of getting clear of the cluttery part. And I think that, to your point, Jenny, I get to do that in my head as well, to get rid of the cluttery part, and to just enjoy the extent of the richness that's there. So Jenny says for the RV, and I'm not sure what the question is related to the RV, but one of the reasons that I want to be clearing out is because I intend to have life in an RV, and then I also intend to build my dream house. So and my dream house is not a McMansion kind of house. My dream house is an off-the-grid, self-sustaining home that is eco-friendly and hopefully heats and cools itself and cleans its own water and does all kinds of other awesome things. So Dennis says, I'll try again. Damn, autocorrect. Oh, you're so funny. You're so funny, Dennis. I knew that you were trying to do that. Autocorrect will get you every time. So Guten Morgen, Schoenfrau. I know that I did not speak that well, but Dennis says you handle that clutter so well. The mental clutter, I'm guessing you think you're referring to. Oh my gosh, guys, I gotta run. I got an appointment. I love you. I will see you soon. I didn't realize what time it was. This was so much fun. Talk to you soon. Let me see how to get out of here. All right, everybody, take care.